So like Delana mentioned, my name is Cassandra Rendon Morales. I use she, her, ella pronouns, and I am the Reproductive Rights Campaign Coordinator here at the ACLU of Colorado.
Hi everyone, I'm Lizzie Hinckley. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the Reproductive Rights Policy Council here at ACLU of Colorado.
So I want to go over a little bit about what we will be covering tonight. So tonight you will walk away with more information on the Abortion Ballot Initiative campaign that is underway here in Colorado. You'll walk away with a deeper understanding on how this is an attack on reproductive freedom. And you will also walk away with ways to stay engaged. And please hold your questions or shoot them as they're coming up. We will make sure to leave some time at the end to answer all of those. I also want to give a shout out to all of our coalition members who are joining us tonight. We don't do this work alone. We do it in partnership, and we do it in partnership with the Colorado Reproductive Health, Rights, and Justice Coalition. So a big shout out to them and to everyone who's joining us tonight. So we are going to start off with talking a little bit about abortion later in pregnancy. We're going to break it down. So what that means, right? So abortion later in pregnancy, or also referred to as later abortion, is a political concept. It's actually not a medical concept at all. It was created by anti-abortion politicians and activists seeking to ban all abortion. Later abortion typically describes abortion during the second or third trimester. And this procedure is actually a procedure that is covered about 1% in the abortion and reproductive healthcare services in the US. And they're usually performed at or after 21 weeks. Later abortion bans impose one-size-fits-all restrictions that do not account for the unique circumstances of every pregnancy. And we'll go over a little bit about like what that means and what that may look like for individuals seeking this procedure. These bans are also arbitrary. They're medically unnecessary and unconstitutional under the Roe v. Wade law. And then Colorado does not restrict later abortion. We're a safe haven for later abortion care. I also want to go over specifically like why these laws are so arbitrary and just name a little of the barriers that they impose. So when we're talking about some of the logistical and financial barriers they impose, it'll be a list of geographic to maybe financial barrier to maybe like talking about medical care and access. So why is abortion later in pregnancy an essential option for pregnant people? Well, everyone should have the freedom to make personal decisions about their pregnancy based on medical evidence and their own beliefs. Every pregnancy is unique. So again, it's not one size fits all. These bans are drafted by anti-abortion activists and politicians, and they don't put the health of pregnant individuals first. Later abortion often involves a complication that seriously threatens the life or health of a pregnant person or fetus that cannot survive, or both. Existing abortion restrictions create financial and logistical barriers that delay access to earlier pregnancy. So that may look like Title X gag rules, Hyde Amendment, waiting periods, trap laws. And again, just thinking about those logistical barriers, thinking about financial barriers when it comes to just accessing reproductive health care in general. For example, like finding enough money, finding someone to take care of your children if you have any, taking time off of work or school. Again, location is a huge barrier for a lot of folks in this country, even outside of this country. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Lizzie, who's going to walk you through some other great content.
Thanks, Cass. So right now I'm going to share the stories of 3 different families as a way of illustrating some of the points that Cass made earlier. These first two stories are meant to illustrate the really difficult decisions that a lot of people who access later abortion are faced with. This is the story of Erika Christensen and her husband, as well as Christina and Roy Taylor. The Taylors are Coloradans. They live in Colorado. Erika and her husband live in New York. Both families were very much wanting to become pregnant. Erika and her husband were excited to anticipate the arrival of their first child. And the Taylors were really excited to add a third baby boy to their family. Both of these families got the crushing diagnosis in their second and third trimesters that their developing fetus was not compatible with life. It means that should they had continued their pregnancy and given birth, neither of their babies would have survived, and they likely would have suffered severely in the process. Both of these families thought about their options, spoke with their doctors, and in consultation with their families and with their doctors, decided that they wanted to access later abortion. Here is where their stories diverge because of where they lived. The Taylors, because they were in Colorado, which, as Cass mentioned, does not have a legal restriction on later abortion, they were able to make their decision and access care within a week of their diagnosis. They were able to access care close to home in the support of their community with their treating physicians. The Christensens, Erika and her husband, had a very different experience. Although grappling with the same heart-wrenching diagnosis and experience as the Taylors, they also had the added stress of realizing they lived in a state that restricted later abortion, and that Erika was too far along to be able to legally access later abortion in her home state of New York. So aside from having to make the decision to terminate, as well as and the emotions that come with that, they had to arrange for travel and scramble to borrow money from family members to cover the cost of the procedure, as well as travel and hotel, which was for them over $10,000. They had to travel to a foreign state, thousands of miles away, stay in a strange hotel, access later abortion, and then fly home to deal with their heartbreak. The Taylors, because they were able to access care in Colorado, have credited Colorado's access as being like the one blessing that they had through this really heart-wrenching process, was that they were able to feel supported in their state. Slide, please, Cass.
Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay.
So thank you. So this next slide is meant to illustrate a very different situation. This is M's story. M is a Coloradan. She encountered a pregnancy after being the victim of a rape. She was at the time homeless, living outside without resources. Nevertheless, she decided as soon as she found out she was pregnant that it was the right decision for her to have an abortion, and she was able to schedule an appointment to have an abortion during her first trimester. The night before her abortion, she was sleeping in a motel that often puts up homeless folk on vouchers, and her hotel was targeted by law enforcement who often go to motels where they know there might be people with outstanding warrants, and they searched the names of the folks who were staying there, and they found that M had an outstanding warrant for a failure to appear in court. So she was arrested in the middle of the night before she was supposed to have her abortion the next day, and she was taken to jail. When she got to jail, she let her jailers know that she was pregnant and that she had arranged for an abortion the next day. She asked if they would be able to transport her to the clinic for the abortion, and she was told no. She asked if she would be able to access the care within the jail or within the medical facility that the jail works with, and she was told no. And then when she met with the treating physician in the jail and asked them about what her options were because she wanted to have an abortion, she was told by that treating physician that because this was a Title X facility and the gag rule applied, that he was unable to advise her on all of her options, including abortion. So by the time M was released from jail, she was much further along. She was experiencing unrelated medical complications that delayed care for even longer. And by the time she was able to access later abortion, she was well into her second trimester. M is one of the 58% of people who have later abortions who say that who have abortions generally, who say they would have preferred to access care earlier than they did. But like M, people are faced with people are faced with obstacles such as financial, logistical, information obstacles. M's story is really an illustration of how not only is every pregnancy unique, but every pregnant person's circumstances are unique. So these are personal decisions to be made in support with one's family and one's doctor, not by politicians or anti-abortion activists. Next slide, please. Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about an abortion ban ballot initiative that we and our partners have been watching for some time in Colorado, and that is likely to be on the November 2020 ballot. Next slide, please. So the abortion ban ballot initiative that we're talking about is called Initiative 120. The long and short of it is that it bans abortion at 22 weeks. It takes away individual decision-making in Colorado. This effort is being led by a group called Due Date Too Late, which is a group of anti-abortion activists and politicians who are bringing this initiative, this later abortion ban, because they've figured out that Coloradans have rejected several times personhood initiatives that would ban all abortions starting at conception. So this is a tactic that anti-abortion activists are using. They see it as a step towards eventually getting to the personhood place that they've been trying to advance for so long. Just in the last 2 years, we saw anti-abortion politicians in the state legislature try and enact 2 laws that would ban later abortion. One was in 2018, and it was what we call a method ban. It would have outlawed the safest and most medically indicated procedure for people who are seeking abortion later in pregnancy. And just this past February in 2020, there was a 22-week ban bill that's identical to Initiative 120. Next slide, please. So how does Initiative 120 impact our reproductive freedom? I'll give a quick rundown of what it does. As I mentioned, it bans abortion after 22 weeks. There is no exception for the health of the pregnant person. There is no exception for when the fetus will not survive, as was the case with the Taylors and the Christensens. And there's no exception for when the pregnant person is a survivor of rape, like M was, or incest. If a doctor performs abortion after 22 weeks, then they face criminal charges and medical license suspension. This initiative is not based in medical fact. Medical experts and providers do not support it. It is a political initiative. It hurts real people in Colorado by taking away the freedom to make personal decisions like the Taylors and the Christensens did. And it destroys, this is critical, it destroys the safe haven that we have here in Colorado. Colorado is one of only 7 states that doesn't legislate a ban on later abortion. And as a result, 2 of the 3 later abortions that are performed in Colorado, those patients are coming from outside of Colorado, some are even from outside of the country. One of the, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that the Taylors took solace in during their excruciating journey was that they were able to access care, compassionate care, with their own providers in their own community. This ban would take that away. It would send the Taylors out of state to access care, or if they could even get it outside of the state, if they could make that trip. Next slide, please. So Initiative 120 is an attack on Roe v. Wade. Let's be clear about that. It is unconstitutional under Roe v. Wade, Casey versus Planned Parenthood, and all of the other cases that have come out of the Supreme Court since then. The reason this is because under Supreme Court jurisprudence, before fetal viability, which is defined as when a fetus can survive outside of the womb, either with medical intervention or without, before that point of viability, a state cannot ban abortion under any circumstances. Initiative 120 does that. It sets an arbitrary date when the vast, vast majority of fetuses are not yet viable. That's 22 weeks. And that's unconstitutional. It's also unconstitutional because after a point of fetal viability, a law, in order to be constitutional, must have exceptions for the pregnant person's life and health. Initiative 120 does not have a health exception at all for the pregnant person, and it limits the life exception to when the pregnant person is in immediate danger of losing their life due to only a physical condition. So if someone is experiencing a psychological condition that is endangering their life, it would still be illegal for their provider to perform an abortion. Further, there's no exception in this law for rape or incest, or when the fetus will not survive outside of the womb. So the folks that we talked about, the Taylors, the Christensens, and M, if this was enacted, they would no longer be able to access the care that they were able to access in Colorado, taking away that safe haven. Next slide, please. Where do we stand in the process for Initiative 120? So currently, we are engaged, or the proponents of the initiative, due date too late, are in kind of a state of limbo. They submitted signatures to the Secretary of State in March. After the Secretary of State examined these signatures, they found that they were about 10,000 signatures short, which means that under statute, they're allowed a 15-day cure period where they can go back out and try and get those 10,000 valid signatures. At the moment, that cure period starts on May 15th, but that has been and continues to be subject to change because of the ongoing stay-at-home orders that are happening in a lot of our counties, as well as previously statewide. So that might change, but it's a 15-day cure period. Once they're able to enter the cure period, we suspect that they'll do exactly what they did to get the first 100,000+ signatures. They'll go to churches, they'll go to grocery stores, they'll be outside grocery stores, Walmarts, and public events. They'll be asking people to sign on so that they can get this on the ballot. We anticipate that we'll know this summer, likely in June or July, whether Initiative 120 is going to be on the ballot in November. Next slide, please.
So thank you so much for covering that, Lizzie. Now I'm going to walk you through on how to stay connected and how to take action. So we are asking folks tonight to pull out your cell phones, which I know you have right now, and text no bans to 33777. Again, that's no bans to 33777. It is a way to stay updated on this initiative. It's a way to stay connected to us and stay in the loop for future webinars. And it's also a way to connect you with future volunteer opportunities, whether that's specifically with the ACLU of Colorado or with our network in coalition. So yes, so take out your phones, text us. I will also send all of this information in a follow-up email post this webinar. We're also asking our folks tonight or tomorrow or maybe Friday to fill out our activist survey. This is a quick 5-minute survey that you can take. It will help us know what issues you're interested in. It'll keep us informed on things that are happening in your community. Again, it's super quick, it's 5 minutes. And then we're also asking folks to join us for our next webinar series. Our next one is this Thursday, April 30th at 6:30 p.m. It's ensuring racial equity during COVID. And for any of the past webinars that we have put on, you can find those under our homepage, under the Advocacy from Home campaign. So there are pre-recordings on there. There are also resources on there. And again, I will send out an email with all of this information, including that homepage, the activist survey, and all of our resources that we've put up so far. And here are some of the resources that we briefly touched on tonight. For folks who joined us tonight, you will have access to this presentation. So you can always just go on here and click on them. I would definitely recommend reading some of these articles and then just reading more on abortion later in pregnancy. And then at the bottom, we do have some reproductive health care services that you are more than welcome to access. If you've noticed, the Women's Freedom Fund is down there, which is the Colorado Freedom Fund. Yeah. And so now we're going to move into our questions portions. Delana will be moderating this section. But before we start that, I do want to put up our contact information in case you have a specific question that we can't answer tonight. If there are any questions that we can't answer tonight, I will make sure to write them down and I will follow up with folks individually.
All right, thank you both so much for this information. So there is a Q&A box on your screen. Right now we don't have any questions, just a word of encouragement from one of our lovely partners. Thank you very much, Molly. But I have a question, so I'll get us started and the rest of you can think about your questions. When you say cure, I think of going back to people who have already signed this petition whose signature for some reason was invalid. But I think what you said was they can go and get new signatures, people who never signed the petition to put the initiative on the ballot. Is that correct? Am I correct? Because cure means something different in the voting world.
Yes, I believe that is correct. So during this cure period, they're able to go out and try and find new signatures from new folks that can be verified so that they reach that 124,000 and change number.
Okay. All right. So that's a little different from what we're used to, like on a campaign where maybe you signed your ballot incorrectly or something like that. So given the COVID restrictions that we're under, what are our next steps? What are we going to do to get the word out about this? Phone banking?
Yes, I can take that question.
Great.
So what I'm asking you tonight to do is to definitely sign on to that texting bank. Just, you can shoot a quick email to that, or not email, sorry, a text message to that, and then that's you joining into that campaign. So once we're ready to roll out phone banks, once we're ready to go door knocking, like, we can lean on you all to get out the word or to join that, but we are anticipating, launching that eventually in the summertime, and then just doing education, right? So you can do peer-to-peer education, go under those resources, read up on those articles. and talk to your friends and families about this initiative. You know, like Lizzie said, they're going to be in churches, they're going to be outside of King Supers, they're going to be at the park because that's that's where people will be this summer. So, you know, just staying informed and sharing the knowledge that you are taking tonight.
Great. Probably a question for Lizzie. If this initiative passes, can people sue because it violates Roe v. Wade?
Yes. So if this initiative passes, it means that we will have a new statute, a new state law that violates the constitutional right to choose abortion. The rub there is that in this day and age, with Trump appointing anti-abortion judges to the federal courts, the 10th Circuit, where Colorado is located, as well as the U.S. Supreme Court, are hostile to abortion rights. And so it would be a strategic decision about, is this an avenue we want to go in? Do we want a bad decision out of these courts that might even infringe upon abortion rights in Colorado even more? So we are not banking on that as being the best course of action. It could be a tool in the future, but the best case scenario for abortion rights is to stop this before it even gets on the ballot, and if it gets on the ballot, to soundly vote it down.
Okay. Yeah, it makes it really, the way the courts are going, I think it makes it far more important for us to make sure this is voted down, and you all know how you can help us do that. The next question is from Paloma, that she wants to know if she can share our resources links with folks on the Women's March team, and absolutely feel free to share these things with anyone. The best we can do is, you know, get this word out and let people know. Is there a deadline to get on the ballot?
Yes. So there's a constitutional deadline that says in the Colorado State Constitution, at the very latest, signatures need to be submitted at least 3 months before the November election. So that would be the first week of August. I saw that someone else had a question that's related to this about the potential for the proponents of Due Date Too Late to file a legal action challenging COVID as a obstruction of their ability to collect signatures. And so this is all kind of related. The Due Date Too Late campaign already filed a lawsuit back in March, actually alleging that the Secretary of State regulation or statute that requires signatures to be turned in within a 6-month window is unconstitutional, because they believe it infringes upon their free speech, First Amendment rights. So that lawsuit is currently in the holding pattern. But they filed that in March, and the relief they're seeking is for the court to say that they have until August to submit all of their signatures. This was before COVID became as dire as it is now, before there were statewide and countywide stay-at-home orders. So since then, the court has been issuing on a rolling basis extensions of when the cure period is supposed to start, because it recognizes that they're unable to collect signatures at this time when people are being told to stay home.
Great. The next question is Cobalt, one of our wonderful partners, hosted an excellent webinar discussion with Dr. Warren Hearn last week, which was very informative. He noted that this is a direct attack on his clinic. Are there other practitioners as well? And this person wants to thank the coalition for defending our rights and standing up for women and others who need reproductive care. So does anyone want to take that one?
Yeah, so Dr. Hearn is certainly the target of this campaign. He has been a vocal advocate for abortion access and rights for many, many years. And when I mentioned the story of Erika Christensen earlier, who came from New York, it was Dr. Hearn who provided her with later abortion care. There are other providers in Colorado who are able to provide abortion up to a certain point. And so Dr. Hearn is not the only one, but there are a very limited amount, not just in Colorado, but in the country, because of the fact that the vast, vast, vast majority of states outlaw later abortion after a certain point.
Great, thank you for answering that. So when will we know if this is on the ballot or not?
At the very earliest, we'll know the first week of June, but that's assuming that the cure period starts May 15th. If they get another extension, perhaps to May 30th, then that early June date gets pushed back another 2 weeks. At the very, very latest, they would have to, we would know by early August because of that Colorado state constitutional requirement that all signatures be submitted at least 3 months prior to the November election.
Okay, great. And
sorry, just to add a quick note, if you text the campaign, if you sign up for the campaign, we will keep you updated and let you know as soon as that timeline starts to move, just so you are aware of what's happening and you can start getting involved with us.
That's wonderful. And thank you to all the people who have already texted. I can see their emails coming in, so that's fantastic. So say I'm at the grocery store and I see someone trying to gather signatures. What do I do? What can I do?
Don't sign.
Can I do anything to tell people not to sign? Is that okay?
You mean like to your friends and family or people who are around them?
People who are around them.
I feel like you would know the answer to that, Delina. That's probably a good question for you.
I do know the answer to that. And you can have a conversation with people and say, do you know what you're signing? Do you know what this means? I know in some other campaigns last summer where they were trying to get certain things on the ballot, that was a very effective tactic that some activists used to talk to the people who were about to sign something and say, do you know what you're signing and what it means? So you can do that. You don't want to, of course, take away anyone's constitutional First Amendment rights, but you do have First Amendment rights too, to talk to the people. You certainly don't want to harass the signature gatherers, but you can talk to the people that they're approaching. So that is and another person says, tell the manager to get the person kicked out of the grocery store parking lot. That is a good tactic too. And I think that is all the questions we have. I'm going to give it a second for people to type in another question. Last time as we ended, a new question came in and I felt terrible. So if you have another question you want to ask us, please type it in. And is there any last words you all want to add?
Just hoping that people do text so they can get engaged in this. We're really going to be relying on you all as messengers, as educators for your families, networks, and friends. Abortion later in pregnancy, later abortion is not something that a lot of people know about. So providing them with the facts that we tried to present today is going to be an excellent starting point. Great.
And yes, we absolutely always want you to share our webinars, our information, the information of our partners. We have a great coalition. We work with a lot of great groups, and they will be doing webinars in this and taking it from, you know, different perspectives. So look out for their webinars. And we're getting a lot of thanks, and a warning: don't harass signature gatherers. No, you don't want to harass anybody. That is illegal. Harassment is illegal, but you are allowed to, you know, you have First Amendment right to talk to the people they're talking to. But don't harass them. Don't be rude. We always want to be the better people in these, and, you know, don't sign the petition, and tell your friends and family not to sign the petition. So.
And if you need talking points, if you need, you know, you're like, hey, Cass, like, this sounds great, but like, how do I even bring this up with like some friends? Like, we can send you talking points. We can send you graphics. Just stay connected with us. Follow us on social media. Sign up for our emails. Text the no bans, and we'll hook you up with something.
Absolutely. All right. I think we are done for tonight. So stay tuned. Join us on Thursday at 6:30 for our racial equity during COVID-19, ensuring racial equity. Oh, we've got a couple more questions. Ensuring racial equity during COVID-19 and beyond. And just a few more thank yous from our lovely audience tonight. Other than that, we are finished, and we hope to see you. Wait, one more. They would like a one-pager, Cass.
Perfect. Okay. I think
So
we can take down the information, correct, from your end?
I think that we'll be getting something like that out pretty soon.
I think so too. So.
Yeah, so we will have that up on our Advocacy from Home website in the next week or so. Look at our partners pages. They have information too. And I think we're going to close it out now. So everyone have a wonderful evening, and thank you again for attending.
Thank you so much, y'all.